being here. This is the second time we organize this kind of event. It's called Our Stories. Anyway, we are... jolín, a ver, ¿qué me pongo? ¿Dónde estoy? So we created this group in one of the events we are doing to inspire each other is to interview women musicians, and tonight we have the pleasure to be interviewing Barbara, Wiernik, and Nathalie. So yeah, Nathalie, I mean, for those who don't know, she's like a piano player of the BGO, teaching here at the KCB, and in another academy also, right? Yes. And then leader of her own project, and also sang in many bands, large trajectory in the Belgian jazz scene and international. And Barbara, same thing, she's a singer leading her own project, as well as participating with many other artists, and vocal teacher in the Antwerp Conservatorium, and currently doing a PhD in the KCB and VUB. Yeah. And actually, you're done, right? No?
No.
I was like, I'm calculating, but no. Okay, great. So, as an introduction, this is an interview that is more like I decided to do it for myself, but also I decided to do it more open because we created this group, and it was like, oh, it's cool to just share this view and this inspiration moment with everyone. So it's nice that you can be here. Then the collective we created was to address gender issues within the music scene, but not only jazz. We try to really touch many different environments. So as a collective that wants to address really gender issues, we are aware we're leaving out many other discrimination factors, and we are really focusing on this gender topic. And yes, I want to say always a round of thanks for the people helping to organize this, which Enora, recording, Audrey and Constanza with the mics and logistics, Raf, logistics, and of course Nathalie and Barbara for finding a date and a moment to get together. And now, after this messy intro, I would like to listen to one of a song of their discography. It was hard to choose. I chose, for opening, I think we can listen to one track of Nathalie, which is... It's coño, es que de verdad, Kalila Elina from Chemin Croisé. But where is the cable? I forgot the little detail to plug my... Too many things in a row. Okay.
I'm not going to sing.
Well, since everybody knows it, I think we can move on. And if you can...
Moi j'en ai un dans mon casier.
A priori, je pense.
Numéro 44.
C'est bon, il y a...
Non mais attends,
Ah ok.
Celui-là, mais du coup, c'est que les mini-jacks, ça ne marchera pas, je pense.
Oui, mais c'est avec mon portable. C'est en live.
ça va ça.
Mais non, ça va pas marcher. Parce qu'il me faut deux.
Non. Il faut un double qu'il y a dans mon casier. Si tu peux aller le chercher. Et pendant ce temps-là, on commence et on fait un break après. 44.
44.
Cat breaking, I have many valuable things in there. Sorry, a bit messy today. Anyway, we listen to it when we are tired of talking. So, I would like to start by just talking about your life, your biography, just like when did you start playing music? What made you, like, under what circumstances did you come from a musical family? All these kind of things, and you can, some of you can start.
How much time we have?
So, hello everybody. I began music when I was 18 years old, so it was quite late, because at that period people were beginning music when they were kids, usually. But for me it was kind of a surprise for me also to begin music. And the first second I began music, I fell in love also with music. So it was really a love story with music and with jazz, because I began with jazz. So I studied 2 years in the jazz studio in Antwerp. And then I came here following by my teacher of the jazz studio, who also came here. So I followed David Links here. And I studied here during 5 years. And then I met, well, I was doing plenty of workshops also. And I met many amazing teachers, amazing musicians, and also I met Norma Winston in Ireland during a workshop. And Norma Winston is still my, how do you call it, my mentor. And what can I say? I recorded my first CD with Joseph Dumoulin, piano player, after spending a few months in India after my study. I spent a few months traveling through India to learn music, to learn Carnatic and Hindustani music from India, and voila.
And you, I was more thinking really like very early age, or like why did you two decided to start music and this kind of stuff, or if it's not early age but like your first years. I will get to your further collaborations.
Yes.
And what about you? I don't know when you started playing music. What was your impulse to start playing?
I started officially when I was 12 years old, but I was playing since I was 5 years old, just on an organ home, and I just played just like this. And I started classical lesson at 12. And I met jazz, I remember, I was maybe 15 or 16, and I felt also in love with jazz. So 2 years after, I was supposed to go to the Conservatorium of Liège to study classical music, and I went, and there were some jazz courses there, and I went directly to the jazz courses, and after 2 years or 3 years studying classical music, I said, okay, now I want to go into jazz really. And by chance, the CRB opened jazz section at that time, because I thought at the time that I had to go to Holland or to the States. And so I could study here with the first official jazz courses in Belgium. And I had lessons with Charles Loos for 2 years, I think, and Arnoul Massa also, and a lot of other good musicians. And at the time it was the system of the third prize, so it was not 5 years studying, it was not the bachelor master, it was just what we called at the time the first prize that I got in 2 years. And at the same time, I was also starting to play with different people also. And after my first prize, Charles told me, oh, I cannot teach you anything more, but the only thing I can do for you, I have a little bit of money, So I'm going to pay you a studio and you make a CD.
Alright.
And I will deal with the label about money. So I don't have any money for you guys to pay a studio. But it was a very nice experience, and so I was really into it since the beginning. And from that moment you record your own project, but I was also playing in other groups and also starting to record project and to make concert. So it was more than 30 years ago.
Yes, it was. At 23 years old, they gave you the best young talent award, right? For your first album.
Yeah.
And my question about this kind of like very fast, you start playing with a lot of people. Your teacher plays you a recording. This I didn't know. How did you feel about such recognition, being so young, and how do you see yourself experiencing that? Like, have you looked backwards and thought like, oh, how did you feel about yourself, and how do you see yourself from now?
I had a few prizes, but each time you say, okay, thank you, and it's nice to have some kind of publicity for the public and so on, and to get the chance. So I am really grateful for that. But you know, the work is still to do. You reach some level, but there you reach that level, and you say, okay, but you're already there with your mind, and you never sit on this situation because it's always forward going, you know.
Okay, well, you both already spoke a bit, but how did you feel during your started years? How was your passing through the conservatory? Did you enjoy it? How was it to have with your fellow students and this kind of energy? I guess it was a quite small thing because it was just starting. You were the first generation to have here in Brussels, and you also, I guess, one of the first. How were those years for you?
Well, for me it was like everything I was doing was a discovery. So everything was totally new to me, and I loved it so much, and that everything was super interesting. Like, I loved kind of everything. It was kind of paradise coming here every day, and certainly too much. But it was always very, very, how do you say, kind and relaxed with my friends here, and I was actually the only, maybe not in the first year, but from the second year I was the only girl in my
In your
class. But all the guys who were there were, well, almost all of them were super kind and helpful, and so it was kind of comfortable for me. Sometimes, well, with a few teachers it was totally fine, and with a few teachers it was more complicated, and I think that's life. That's how it goes.
Oh, it was a very small section in the beginning. I remember we were 6 or 5 piano players, 2 girls, and it was the same for the other instruments. So the section was quite little, you know, maybe 30 students, and we didn't have too much lessons because I told you it was the first prize. So we had, I should say, essentials lessons, like instrument, ensemble, harmony, side reading, history, maybe it was rhythm. So not 10 hours lesson a week. So it was really comfortable to really practice and to make other project. And I was there when they changed the system, with a lot of advantage, of course. But I have certain kind of nostalgia, and also not only nostalgia, but I like that system that was more open to have time to practice. In fact.
One of my questions was like, because now you're both teaching in like institutions, so how different do you think your own learning process at that time is from the learning process your current students have now? What do you think of like the music system school? Yeah, like both your insight on this, like okay, you went through music school on early stage, now it has evolved. Yeah, what do you think of it now right now?
Close the door. I don't know. I have the impression that the new system has to be recognized by the official things. You know, that's why they decide to put it in a university level and to have that kind of how call you that. All the ECTS points and to be equivalent to another kind of study, you know. And maybe, and I have to admit that every lesson is fantastic and you can learn from every lesson, but sometimes it takes so much time and a musician has to practice really a lot. I don't know how to study. If you want to be a lawyer or a doctor or whatever, certainly you have to study a lot, but we have to practice. And it's the difference, and I think that this system is, for me, is not optimal. That's my opinion since a few years. But it's what it is, and we can have also a lot of advantage having a diploma and so on. And it's longer also. The fact that it's 5 years, so for some students it's really useful to have 5 years. And sometimes I say, it's too much. Because we have to learn also by ourselves, and I think a jazz musician has to keep a certain kind of autodidact learning. And here, having a school bringing everything, we bring everything in 5 years. Sometimes we lose a little bit the essential thing about jazz, or improvisation or whatever. And sometimes I'm thinking about the first jazzmen I played with. They are now dead since years. But the old generation who learned really just because they listened to the CD, there were not any book or not any CD, it was a LP. And I said, oh, we are really far away from that. But in the other sense, it made the jazz, the music, the evolution of the music really kind of heavy, you know? And maybe it shouldn't have been the same if the system was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's just an observation because it's what it is. We cannot change that.
But we can't always change things, but it's good to have this, to try to find this balance between, okay, how do we find a middle ground between having this institutionalized learning and this autodidact, more free learning, which is equally important, I think, in a way. So it's like, let's get tools from an institution, but let's also keep our freedom and our passion for ourselves and not for others. But if you have any other comments?
I don't want to talk like a stupid old woman talking about saying it was better before, earlier. So, so no, it wasn't. To me, it wasn't better before. It was just different. It's true, we had more time to practice. That's for sure. But I think now it's a bit of a luxury sometimes for the students, and I'm not sure they realize it's really a luxury. They can have so many different classes with so many interesting teachers, and well, I'm talking about what I know in Antwerp where I teach. For example, the singers, they are so in a luxury that I think they don't realize it, you know, because they have singing classes and vocal ensemble and vocal impro and vocal technique, and I mean all those classes. I mean everything they can learn, and everything is just there. You know, they just go at the conservatory in the morning. They stay there the whole day long, and they have all the classes. And for me, it was different. So I never had a technical class or an impro class or anything. It was just the singing class, you know. So it was just totally different, and I think everything is interesting because I had to learn everything by myself. Not everything, but I mean all what I couldn't learn here. And but the thing is that now the students, they receive so many informations that sometimes they lose the curiosity, and that's a pity. That's really a pity. So now I'm talking like a stupid old woman, but that's what I
tend
think.
to agree with that. Like, there's really a balance to be found, I think.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a bubble, and then because I mean, you traveled to learn music, and maybe if you have everything right here, right now, not only in school but also internet, blah blah blah, then you just don't go and meet the people. But anyway, let's move on. I would like to know, what are your favorite artists from jazz tradition? Your like old influences, Americans, people. I know about you, but I don't know about you. Like, I know you were Lee Konitz, Wayne Shorter, Herbie Hancock, Jamie Hayden, but probably there's many more.
Yes.
So of course, if you wanna share a bit.
If I'm talking about the singers, I'm a Ella Fitzgerald addict. So, yeah, I know it's really common. Many singers are fans of Ella Fitzgerald, but I'm really a big fan of her. And okay, great. Chet Baker also. Betty Carter. Carmen McRae.
But yeah.
When you have such musicians and there are so many, that when it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
And it stays, and it's universal, you know. Ella is universally fantastic. And it's no matter of aesthetic, of time, old or no, I think.
Yeah, it's just the soul is there and the passion is there.
Yeah.
And Miles.
Yeah. I mean, it's all these legends, but more like, who did you maybe transcribe more, dig more the style, the direction of music? What influenced your later, more like your own creative process, kind of sonority? Like, of course, we have all these legends we admire and are like universal, no, as you say, but a bit more like that touched your personal musical vision later on, if that's a question to ask.
I think the guys and the girls, you listen to when you are touching with these guys, these musicians, when you are 20 or 30 or 40, it stays. You said Lee Konitz, but we can talk about Pat Metheny or Jim Hall or whatever, so much musicians, you know, that sometime at one time of your life you listen to these guys and it stays, it enters in you, it stays, and even you don't listen back for a while, a few years, you come back and you say, my God, it stays really in your heart. And I think it's the most beautiful thing about music. And it could be a concerto of Mozart, whatever. You re-listen to it and you're still amazed, you know? Yeah. And I think that it's really powerful. And I think that in 30 years, if I'm still alive, I will say the same. And in the meanwhile, maybe in the 30 coming years, I'm going to discover other musicians that are going to enter in myself. And so that makes a part of your personality. Yeah. Even if you don't want to, you are influenced in a certain kind of way.
You're a vortex of music.
But it's just because you asked about the American tradition.
Yes, I did.
Otherwise, I have some other answers.
Of course, no, but I mean, yes, yeah. About the jazz, bueno, tradition all days. All right, I'm gonna focus a bit on. Sorry, I'm gonna focus a little bit on Nathalie for a couple of questions, and then we go to you because you have different lives. No?
We have one generation difference.
Yeah, bueno.
Really, if a generation is 10 or
10, 15, 10, I don't know.
no, what would you say, 10 or 15?
25
Yeah, that's
generation.
the normal life, but in jazz life.
The generation, one generation, you mean?
10.
Oh, so it's 10. So
10.
we have one generation.
Yeah.
She was student when I started giving lesson here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yes, there is.
it's a little bit that.
So, as you mentioned, since you started playing, you had the chance to play with many different people, including Toet Tielemans, Steve Huben, among others. And then in 1999, when I was 3 years old, and in 2000, you won the Django d'Or and the Euro Django, right?
Yes.
And then in Wikipedia, it mentions very accurately it was the first woman to win that prize.
I didn't know that.
That was my question.
I don't know the answer, in fact.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask, did you know you were the first woman winning this kind of prize?
No.
Alright, that's it, we can move on.
and I didn't care, in fact.
I know that was also that's what I thought, but I just wanted to have your perspective on it, you know, because it's a fact.
Yeah.
And then your last albums in trio with Nick Thijs and Tineke Posma.
Yes.
You mentioned in another interview how you really connected a lot with Tineke.
Yes.
And you also mentioned your connection to Maria Schneider when she was here directing and writing for the video. I don't know exactly what she did, but I'm guessing that.
She was invited to conduct
Yeah.
for a tour.
Exactly. And you also mentioned this kind of connection with them, like quite intense. So I would like you to know a bit more about this connection, how you feel, why with Tineke it was kind of a random fact. Well, if you can explain again here, how did you meet Tineke, for instance, and dig into that?
It was 10 years ago, nearly, and it's an organizer from a festival, Gom Jazz Festival in south of Belgium, who organized a festival about women, and he asked me to come and play and say, oh, I would like you to play with another woman. I was not especially attracted by playing with a woman. Yeah, so he talked about different names, and in the names there were Tineke Posma. And I met her once in the club, and we said, oh, one day we'll play together, but it never happened. I said, oh, it's the opportunity to play with Tineke. So it was just one shot, you know. She came the Saturday to rehearse, I sent the chart, and we rehearsed maybe 2 hours. She was completely okay with the tunes, and then we spoke 4 hours. Woman. And the day after we played, and it was, but I think it was more because we had some kind of cultural heroes. We have the same kind of heroes like Likonitz, for example, and she's a fan of, not only a fan, but she's really into the Wayne Shorter's way. She worked with him, and I was really also connected to the music of Wayne Shorter and Likonitz. So suddenly when we play, we have the same references, and it worked, and that's why I made 3 albums with her, because we don't have to speak too much about music, so, and it's working. So I trust her, but it could happen with a guy, you know.
I know, yeah.
And with Maria Schneider was a little bit different because she's conducted big ensemble, so the Brussels Jazz Orchestra. And I felt really in love with her music, and I can say she liked the way I was playing. So the first two we did, she was like, I shouldn't say there, but the American are still keeping some distance, you know, socially.
Yeah.
Not only women, but
I haven't met many Americans.
yeah, but that's my opinion. But after a while, it was we made 3 or 4 tours with her, and it was more and more sharing stuff together. It was nice. And speaking about the position about the woman in jazz, and so it was interesting.
And what did you talk about with her? I mean, about women in jazz or this kind of stuff.
She said that we were women, you know, talking about boyfriends, and I said, all my boyfriends were musicians. And she said, yes, for me also, but once I met a lawyer and my life changed. And she said, it's so fantastic being not with a musician.
I mean, it's very often the case that men musicians have partners that are not musicians, and women musicians, the partners generally are always other musicians.
Yeah.
In general, for me there is something to be looked at into this kind of tendency. And of course, yes, it is amazing to have a non-musician partner.
I don't know, I was only with musicians.
There
Which is very nice because
and disadvantages, yeah.
Yes, you can share a lot of things, and
Yeah.
so it's interesting.
Yes, it is.
And we spoke something I want to relate. We spoke once with Tineke because about this woman situation in jazz. Once with Tineke, we spoke. She was playing with a group of Terry Lynn Carrington, New York drummer, playing with Wayne Shorter, really a star, you know. And yeah, she's fantastic. And she had a group of just girls, and Tineke was invited in the group of.
They have some live videos in
there is
with this trumpet player. But
No,
anyway,
no,
I've
no,
seen
no.
these live videos.
With Gary Allen on the piano, fantastic piano player. She died a few years ago. And she said that once they made a tour with, I shouldn't say that, but with Diane Reeves, fantastic singer. And she said it was absolutely awful because Diane Reeves didn't say any word during a 15 date tour. Not saying hello, nothing. And she said it was awful because in the middle of the concert I had to make a duo, saxophone and voice. She wasn't looking at me. And she did a tour like this. And the second tour was a little bit more normal, let's say. And I said, why? So there are a few explanations, we don't know, of course, but was it the fact that Diane Reeves is a diva and you are a little saxophone player, European, white, I don't know. So take care, you know? Maybe other considerations, you know, the color, the statute, maybe, I don't know.
Me neither. I'm not Diane
Reeves.
Yeah.
You should watch out, it's fantastic. It's really fantastic.
I mean, we could dig into that, but I think for another time maybe, because it's the thing.
But just it's something happening sometime. Also, woman with woman. I never had that bad experience, of course.
You never had a bad experience?
No. We had also in the big band we invited Maria Joao and Tutu also. So it's happening well, you know. I think you're more confronted with a personality that the fact it's a woman or not a woman. But voilà, it's only my experience, and I don't have so many experiences with other women.
That's one of my questions somewhere there. Like, how does it feel to mainly, this applies to both of you, the only women in the band, and do you think there is a thing to it, or not? like that you're not used to work precisely with other women. So do you think this affects the way when there is another woman, it affects you or not?
I think the statute of the other woman, because once I was in a festival and I had to share the loge with Didi Bridgewater, which seems to be very nice in the beginning, and I was really discreet, and at one moment I went away to take some water, I don't know, I came back and she closed the door.
No.
I couldn't get my back or whatever. So I think it was more to do with the fact that she is a star and she wants her own loge and she doesn't want to share.
Yeah, I mean, the term diva has a whole connotation.
Yeah, she's one.
Yes, definitely, but it's a feminized connotation, and
Not always.
and exactly, it's very associated to feminine figures, and I've met so many men divas.
Of course.
My God. So I would like to just say, like, we say diva, and I think sometimes it's amazing to be a diva in the most scandalous way. And I think it has a negative connotation, especially on women. When you meet a man diva, it's okay, but when you meet a woman diva, it's not okay. I'm like, it's a strong personality. Let them do their thing. Let's stop criticizing.
Yes,
You know,
but
I think that is very misogynist, patriarchal thing of like, that person, casually a woman, is a diva, being like, I take all the space. After we can talk about how annoying it is to work with this kind of people, like she's not looking at me, she doesn't say hi. But I think it's extravagant personalities. Miles Davis, he was a fucking diva.
Yeah.
Like, and it's totally okay, you know? Like,
But you know, as a musician, as an artist, I think, you have to be confronted with the ego trip of some artist in
and
general.
with your own also.
And so you have to put your filters or to protect yourself, because it's not really funny, you know. And it's gonna happen. And maybe it's happening in the bank or the situation. It's a human problem, in fact.
Totally.
So
That's why I'm saying that there is a kind of a funny thing about female divas, singers divas. I wanted to talk about also the difference between being a singer and an instrumentalist in a band, and how there is instantly this vibe around singers that they are quite underestimated as musicians, as if they were not like full part musicians because they are only there standing. Right. So yeah, if you have any probably you have more to say about this difference.
Yes, yes. No, but I'm quite happy that you were talking also about men being divas, because I think usually, most of the time, when we talk about diva, it's about a singer. So, and I have to say it's not because we are singers that we are divas. And I mean, I just have to make it clear, because we can be super cool, super nice, and unfortunately, too often musicians see us as a subcategory.
Yeah, that's what I was
And
just mentioning.
that's also part of the idea that musicians and organizers have about the singers. And that's really, really sad and a pity, because I mean, I'm a singer, but I'm a musician, and I'm not a diva, and I'm just doing my life into music. And
But being a diva is okay. I love divas.
well,
And also
I'm not sure I love divas. No, no, I'm not. No, that's not my point of view. We are just musicians playing music together, and well, my dream would be to just have one category of being just musicians and not being subdivided. And I think it's really not often that musicians and organizers see it in this direction. It's too bad, really too bad.
it is too bad, and this leads us maybe, I mean, I'm skipping stuff from your biographies that are very interesting, so maybe I'm gonna pull back and leave the gender stuff for after, because I think it's very nice to talk about just your life, which is amazing, you know? So, I'm going backwards. To your exploration of music, world music. So you, with, bueno, the track we will listen to it afterwards. Chemin Croisé is from the album Chemin Croisé. How, bueno, again, how did getting in touch with this, how did you get in touch with this, and how did it affect your own music trajectory to get the opportunity to play more like world music? Because with your like more classical, then jazz, and then suddenly you get this influence. Yeah, can you talk about this world music experience?
Musically, it was a challenge to play with Karim Maghili, with a oud player, you know, because he has really another cultural background. He's Jordanian. So he has the Arabian culture, but he has also the European culture. He has also a lot of influence of the Spanish culture, because he plays also flamenco very well. So he was not a jazz band, but it was really amazing. And so I tried to write a thing that was playable for piano and oud, which was not the easiest marriage, you know. And because I have to consider the oud instrument, which you cannot do he can do everything, but it's more modern music and so on. So it was a challenge for me, and also playing model, because most of the time I'm playing on changing chord, and it was, I like that kind of stuff, having some challenge to manage music and how to put my musical personality in that new world.
To write for a specific context.
And I didn't know a lot about that world music except Enora Yang, which is a oud player produced by ECM since 30 years. He made very nice albums. And I like that kind of albums because it was really quiet, so I wanted to be a little bit out of the which I like very, very, very much.
We know that. All right. And you also had some like traveling, and also you went to India, and then after you did this album with Joseph, you spoiled it.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, can you talk about this experience?
Yes. So the plan was to travel, and to not only travel but to have like a goal, being there. And I was coming from jazz, so I was just out of school, and I decided to travel. So I wanted to do something else than jazz, and that's what I did for a few months. And being in India was a revelation first, but also I realized that I was just nowhere. I mean, I had to begin from scratch. I was really like a baby, knowing nothing about this music, and it was so interesting, you know, after studying during 7 years, jazz, going somewhere and being like nowhere.
An embryo.
Yes. And I learned so much about how to use the voice differently, about how to see the music in another concept, how to go further into rhythms, how to forget the harmony for a while, and to go so deep into just the ragas and the melodic building up. And so it was so interesting, but I had to accept that I would never be an Indian singer, and that I could just pick up some ideas, some ingredients, and so I've been there a few times since then, and I'm still learning, I'm still loving this music, but it's just, and that's totally fine for me, but it's just some ingredients I add to my voice, to my vocal palette, to my imagination, in the way I'm improvising. So sometimes I'm using it and I love it, but it's just,
Great.
sporadic.
Yes, thank you very much. And this brings me to so many of our legends, they are practicing Buddhism or they're into this kind of spiritual stuff from India, like Sonny Rollins, Harry Hancock. I don't know, maybe others. Anyway, I would like to know, we spoke about this with Margot and Francesca in the previous interview, about the different approach to music, and this I think is starting to touch your PhD topic, if I'm not wrong. But maybe we can first, but anyway, one thing at a time. So, yeah, what do you think there's this difference between European approach to music, which is, I think, more cerebral, to American, and maybe your relationship to it, and also, like, you learned a lot by ear. Yeah, I don't know, what's difference you feel there is in this, like, relationship to music? I feel in America there is a more, like, spiritual connection to it, but what do you think?
All right. Well,
I'm not sure that it's less spiritual when you approach European music. It's just, what do you think, guys? You think it's less spiritual in Europe?
I think maybe she was mentioning the fact of the culture of the church. Maybe not really.
Yeah, probably yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, there is no, I mean, the gospel background is not here, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course. When you talk about gospel, seeing all the spiritual, Negro spiritual, yeah, that's absolutely coming from the American background, and it's just that in Europe they have also, I mean, the European jazz is first coming from the American jazz, so I mean it's just a way. They found another way to do their jazz, or but
which this actually leads to your PhD research. If you can talk a bit about where you're at, what is your question?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to research is to understand, is to know how, well, especially about the singers coming from Europe, and I'm trying to understand if the singers from Europe, contemporary, they have other influences than the jazz singers coming from America, and to understand which are those influences. So to do this, I'm interviewing many singers, European singers, and really trying to understand if what they do is coming from the American tradition, or for example from the Hungarian tradition, or from, I mean, really the traditional music of their country, or from America. Sometimes, I mean, usually it's like, yes, it's totally coming from America, or they have like some other influences from their own countries. But it's really depending also from one singer to the other, and also from where do they come from.
Thank you.
And you can go and check all the interviews because they are on YouTube, and you can click Barbara Wiernik Explores, and you will find on YouTube all the interviews.
I heard the one with Cyril Aimé. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Very nice interview. Interesting stuff. Okay. I mean, it's a very wide question, but creative process-wise, when you start writing music, what is your approach? How do you sit down and write music and then decide who you play with, or you decide it afterwards? Do you, now with this oud player, you were writing for a specific occasion, but do you normally do it like this, or first you choose the people you're gonna play with, or first you write the music, or how does it go for you?
Everything is possible, so it can be in both senses. So of course, if I play with someone, I can be inspired. For example, Tineke, I do know well her sound, and in a certain way, it can inspire me to. Oh, I hear it played by Tineke on the soprano saxophone. But sometimes I have tunes that can be played by everyone, you know, more in the jazz sense, you know. So, and it's funny because these tunes, I have a few tunes like this, I can play it for 20 years because I can play with Bert Joris or with Tineke Postma or with Kurt van Erck or whatever. So I can propose it. And I think it's also interesting when you write tune, sometimes you just observe that it's kind of tune easy to play with other guys. And sometimes it can be the challenge to write tune like this, in the sense like, not the standard, but something easy to approach and to
flexible.
Yeah, and I like that way of thinking, having some starting ideas to write music. But for me, I try, when I write for an album, for example, I know that I have to record in 6 months. I just put me in kind of connection. And ideas are there, you know. And then sometimes it comes in my mind, not sitting on the table or even not on the piano. And then sometimes I have paper in my car and I say, oh, I hear something. And I have to write it down quickly, and then maybe after I have to work on it. But the idea start with I like the process. I'm not cerebralistic. You know, after I have to think, to make a form, to think about the keys, modulate, whatever, you know?
Yeah, to develop it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it works like this now.
Yeah.
When you write music, you have a nucleus in there.
Yeah.
I sometimes write music, but it's mainly that I'm working with musicians and composers, so we work together. And most of the time I also write lyrics. So that's something totally different, because that's first I receive the music and then I have to write some lyrics, and having this fixed tune, of course it can always change a bit, and we can always discuss about could we change this or this to make it more singable, or you know, but yeah, I think it's very interesting to work also on this aspect.
Your last album is a very particular formation. So you have voice, clarinet, bass clarinet, cello, and vibraphone.
And marimba.
Marimba, ooh! Why?
Because. Why? No,
why not? But why?
No,
in a good way. Like, it's particular. It's a very specific combination of timbres and speaking thinking composition-wise, when you wrote the tune, you were like, I'm gonna combine these timbres and I wanna do this kind of.
But
like
first
texture.
of all, I discovered those musicians I really wanted to work with. And I wanted to have another group than we usually have in jazz with piano, bass and drums, or guitar, bass and drums. I really wanted to explore some other musical context and to see how my voice can react being surrounded by totally other instruments that I was than the one I was used to. And it was kind of a big, huge challenge because it was really my first time ever playing with those kind of instruments, and not having the harmony played by a piano, which is so comfortable for a singer, or played by a guitar, which is also like, okay, you play the chord and everything is settled down. So it was really like having the opportunity to play with those specific and special instruments together. It was a long journey. So for this project, I worked with Alain Pierre, who's here, who's a guitar player, composer, teacher, and arranger. And we were really working hard, and he worked like crazy to reach those arrangements, to have those instruments playing all together, and that we don't have a lack of a drums or of a bass or of a piano, you know. All the informations are like this in the music, but with other sounds and characteristics.
Awesome, that makes me want to listen to it. So let's listen to it, but what is your favorite track of the album?
What is your favorite track?
I don't remember if it was like Land of Poetry, I think, but I don't remember because there was so much to listen to.
Yeah, it could be Land of Poetry,
if you
good one.
Okay, let's go.
Land of Poetry.
Land of Poetry from hereby.
Yeah.
Her last album, Ellipse. Go check it out.
Yes. Thank you.
I thank you for the music. A ver, 1 second, get back to the So, what about jam sessions? Did you go to many jam sessions? Do you enjoy going to jam sessions? How was it back in the day? All these kind of things. Can you share your experience with jam sessions?
Do you know that I'm the first trio starting the jam session at the Sounds?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So at the time Sergio asked me to make one evening of jam session.
Okay.
So I had to go to my trio, with my trio, and to play the first set, and then the other guys were coming and play. And for 2 years I did that. But it was really every Monday finishing at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It start your week. Yeah. Oh my God. But it was funny. It was nice.
And besides opening the jam, then did you go often to jams? Is something you enjoy doing or not?
When I was young, we used to go. There was some music shop, CD shop in the Uccle. It was Music In, and it was the shop of the parents of Jean-François Prince, the guitar player. And every Saturday there were a jam session there, and it's a very small kitchen behind the shop, and it was nice because there were sometimes Americans coming, because it was a shop specialized in classical music and jazz CDs, only that, no commercial CDs, and so it was the place to be, and we met a lot of interesting musicians there, old generation, new generation. We were the new generation. But also American, and it was funny. But I did it more when I was young.
Yeah.
Now I don't like too much to go to jam sessions.
Yeah, I never saw you there.
No, there's so many musicians.
Yes.
So, and I'm not living in the city anymore. So.
Yes, true. You have your potager.
The last jam session we did. What did you say?
You have a potager.
Yeah.
Sorry, I stalked you for 2 months. I know
She
everything.
know, very interesting. The last jam session I did, it was in a summer workshop of the Lundi d'Hortense.
Alright.
And I went there to see friends, and maybe I want to play. And I had to wait till 3 o'clock, nearly 4 o'clock, to have the possibility to play.
Oh, wow.
With Phil Abraham, Fabrice Alman, Jan de Haas, and Theo de Jong. And it was really fun, but you know, when you are not anymore 20 and waiting till 4 o'clock to play 2 tunes, it's not my cup of tea anymore.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I don't want to come and say, okay, now I play. No,
You should.
young generation play.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about you?
I'm sure you never saw me at a jam session.
No.
No.
No, I
No.
haven't. No.
Well, I think it's quite complicated for singers, honestly, because especially for women singers, because we have to change the key of the standards, which is really like, it looks like being a problem for the musicians to change the key of the standards. And the thing is that we cannot sing when it's so low, because all the tunes were mainly written by men for men. And so it's just not possible for us to sing when it's not in another key. And well, we could do it, but then it's just ugly. And well, you know, so it's, the thing is that usually we don't feel welcome, because we arrive on stage and we say, oh, can I do Stella by Starlight? Yeah, voilà. No, even if we choose like a kind of a good key, you feel the energy, like, ah, the singer is there. Okay, we have to change our habit, and we have to I mean, now it's so, you know, and you see all the iReal Pro coming on stage, but I mean, even if it's now much easier than it used to be, because you can change the key on the iReal Pro on the phone, you feel that it's kind of a problem for them, for the musicians to change the key. And I have to say, I understand that if the tune was written in one key, it's the key of the song. I totally agree. So I made the choice not to go to jam,
Yeah.
to not face this problem, because if I feel that people are not really welcoming me, I don't see why I should go there.
A very fair decision. What can I say? Have you ever felt annoyed by singers? I'm creating beef. No.
Me?
Yes.
Me?
Yes. Me.
No, you know, I learned a lot of my how you say it, job?
Yeah.
We say that in
Yeah.
English? Playing with a singer, her name is Mary Kay, and I was playing with, she's now 90 years old, 91 years old, and I really did learn my job as a musician with her, and I really like to comp the singer. I did it also with David, David Links a lot of times, and really I enjoy to do that. One time it was difficult, but it was not a jam session, but one time I'm not going to say the name, but we invite one singer to play in a group, and she came on the podium and she said, okay, let's play My Funny Valentine. I said, yeah. I was young, I was 26 or something like this. And she said, okay, My Funny Valentine. A minor, 1, 2, and shit, because we play in C minor. And I said, oh, they were a guitar player and he could play in A minor, and it was okay. I said, I'm just take one chorus to figure out the chords and try to transpose, which I was not used to do. And after 4 bars, she looked at me and, could you play please? That time I hate this person. But now you have that, and you can quickly change the stuff, but it was at the time not really fair, but it was not fair from her.
I think
It was the only time.
I think it's just also confronting for everyone, like for her to like, oh shit, it's annoying, like I have to play in this key, and then for the musician, like, oh shit, I cannot transpose, practice.
But you can say also, My Funny Valentine, A minor is okay for you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
What I do when I was leading the jam session, we play this, in that key it's okay. I'm not putting in situation in the countdown, you know?
Of course.
Yeah, but it's more the personality of the person at the time, you know?
Of course. No, but I do think that in jam sessions it's a bit like, party pooper is not a playground anymore, you have to change the key. But yeah, in ideal land you can all play 12 keys, everything.
I think we don't hear you too much.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Do you hear?
Less,
No, not
You
so
hear
much.
me?
not that much.
Not that much? Why?
But I'm not saying that singers don't have to go to jam session, not at all. I'm really encouraging all the singers to go to jam session and to be ready to confront the musicians and to, I mean, if it's becoming a habit, it should be. I mean, it should be a habit. Okay, if a singer is coming on stage for a jam session, and that everybody knows, okay, that's totally fine for me because I can play the tune in the 12 keys, and that's absolutely no problem. It should be like this, in fact. No, but it's true. And I'm sure, I don't know how you work with your students, but I know, for example, Eric Lenini, for him, as a teacher, you have to know the tunes in the 12 keys, all the standards that you're working on. So I'm not saying that you have to know all the standards in the 12 keys, but I'm sure it's an interesting work as a pianist also to know for all the pianists. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an experience that you can do when you're studying, just to see a standard and to understand the chord progression and see, okay, we modulate there is a subdominant cadence there, and there are the, you know, and it's easier to transpose when you sing like this, you know. So when you sing like this, you can really do it quite easily. But I don't ask to do this with all the standards, but for one or two, just to specific standard that offers you that specific chord change, you know. But in fact, it happens nearly never that you have to transpose all the time standard. Most of the time, you have to learn Stella by Starlight in B flat, and you will play in B flat all the time. And if you play with a singer, you transpose it.
Yeah.
And also, when I give lesson to an ensemble, if the singer doesn't play in the normal key, we have to be able to do it quite easily, singing like I told you. But doing that with all the standards, I'm not sure. I prefer that you learn 12 standards more than learning one standard in 12 keys. But it's my opinion.
But about Stella by Starlight,
It's in G.
it's in G,
Yeah.
or sometimes in D.
Yeah.
And so some people.
But do you play it once in G in your life?
I tried once. Yeah.
It never happened to me.
Never happened.
Yeah.
Because he had to play with a singer. No.
Yeah.
Joking.
Yes. And
Yeah.
strange also, when I was playing with Mary Gay, I learned a lot of old standards in the keys she used to sing, and then after I had to play in the right key, and I was out of tune, you know.
Yeah, in the end, it's learning songs and then knowing the keys and being able to make music from
I
that.
memorize quite quickly.
Yeah.
You know, I can look at the standard and playing twice or 3 times and know it by heart,
Yeah.
the chord progression. If you are smart to see how it's written, it's easy.
Yeah. Do you think? Well, I'm going somewhere else, but anyway. Do you think more like functions, form? You always see functions directly, right?
Yes.
Okay. So my question to both of you is: since gender issues are more addressed today and more visible than when you were younger, I'm wondering if you, for instance, experienced maybe throughout your life discriminatory situations that maybe back then you didn't feel they were discriminatory or violent, but then now with perspective and more information you do, or did you ever experience at all any discriminatory or violent situation because of the fact that you're a woman?
I have to say that I had chance. I had never had too much problem being a woman in that world, but certainly I put some filters, or I learned to work with men, also to see how they work or they speak. And sometimes you have, in the beginning it was a little bit, you know, as a young musician sometimes, even the public comes to you, or a man, and say, you should do that, you know, it's telling you what you have to do. And sometimes could be a little bit strange, but you learn to deal with that kind of people, you know. But it takes a certain time. When you are young, a little bit surprised. But with the musician, I had the chance. We have to say that here in Belgium, the jazz family, let's say, is quite okay. You know, we know everyone. I don't know if it's the case in France or in the States. States, it's more jungle. En France, we will see with you. But I know when you go in Paris, it's not always so easy, you know. I have the impression. I remember the Toet Tielemans, I played a few times with Toet Tielemans. He told me going to France, playing in France is not easy. The journalists are not always sympathetic, and it was not always the good place to play, you know. And he was an international star.
Yeah.
So that's maybe something else. But yeah, the only discrimination I had, it was like being a teacher. I know in the academy, I don't know if it's still the case because I don't want to mind anyway about that kind of stuff, but in the beginning I know that my salaries was lower than the salaries of a man. I don't know
It's
if it's
terrible.
still the case.
No, I hope it's not.
I don't want to check.
Check it out.
But you should check.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And in teaching, in your relationship with students, do you think there is any kind of, you've never, how do you feel when you see your students do you feel a difference when you teach women and when you teach men? I'm being very binary here, but do you feel a difference gender-wise when you teach in your students? How they receive or how they play generally? Like you have many years of experience teaching, so maybe you have like, I feel female students are more in this direction, men like this.
It's depending. For example, I had students, teenager, when in the academy, but I don't have too many teenagers. But I had the impression that the young boy, it was more difficult for the concentration. A girl, most of the time, is mature earlier, but of course you can find other examples completely in opposition. Here in the conservatory, not too much, but more. Sometime more. We spend some time to discuss about being an artist as a woman. You know, you have long studies. So what I'm going to be after an artist? I want to be a mother, have a family, or not? Of course, it's also consideration of the young male student. But I think it's a question that young women are, and sometimes for the first time I asked one of my students 2 years ago, which is a girl, which is already in the 30s, dans la trentaine, and she wanted to start to study in the conservatory again, and I say, okay. Do you plan? She doesn't have any kids, but do you plan to have kids? Because it's going to be heavy, or you are going to stop after 3 years. Think of that. It's not my point of view, but think of that. When you are 20, you have a few years in front of you to decide for kids. But she was already in the 30s, so I asked the question.
Yeah. Would you ask the same question to a male student that is 30 and wants to start conservatory?
No.
Why?
Yes, I will ask the question maybe in another way. A guy from 30 or 35 years, I would say, what are you doing in life? What job you have? Do you have any family obligation or whatever to see? Do you have time to start that kind of lesson? But of course, it's not the majority of students here having that age to start studying conservatory, but it can happen, of course.
Yeah. I wanted to touch today the topic of motherhood, but I find it very tricky because I'm quite annoyed at the fact that if you see an interview with a male musician, you're not gonna ask him about your kids, how did paternity affect your career and this and that, and I see many musicians talking about their kids in a concert. This song is for my kid. It's very romanticized, this paternity thing, and I'm always wondering, and who is taking care of that kid when you're touring for 1-2 months in a row, 3 months, and I'm a bit like, so I would like to talk about maternity with you and how did it affect your career. You don't have kids, so how did it affect your career? But taking into account that this is something we should start discuss also with men because there are 50% of the deal if we're talking about this kind of issue in work, professional opportunities, work, and this kind of thing. Because if we put the focus only on women, it's a bit annoying. But still, I think it's interesting to hear how it affected you, and maybe some ideas you want to give for future fraternities.
So I became a mom when I was very young. I was 26. Yeah. And I had my second baby when I was 29. And I became a single mom when I was 30. So, for sure, it had an impact of how I managed my career. But it wasn't really the question at that time. The question was just, how can I survive with my 2 kids, 2 babies? And I never stopped singing. I never stopped being on stage. But seeing it from my point of view now, 20 years later, I don't know, I really have no clue about how I managed to do it. And we were just talking about it with Nathalie just before the interview. She asked me, had it an impact on your career? Yes, of course, but unconsciously, because consciously I was just trying to manage everything. Being a single mom, raising my 2 kids with love and giving them all they needed and everything they needed. They were my priority, but still, in parallel, I was teaching, in parallel, I was on stage, in parallel, I was just going on, being a singer and a musician, and having projects. So I don't know how I did it, but it's absolutely 100% sure that it had a huge impact on my career.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very impressive. And I wanted to ask, maybe it's a wrong question, but was it an active decision for your career to not have kids, or it just didn't happen and that's it?
Both, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was young, so beginning of 22 years old, it was definitely too young to have a kid. And little by little, I started to play more and more and more. So it was quite away from my state of mind to be. And my parents also told me that they were getting old, of course, and they say, you want a kid, you care about your kid. So that changed also the parameters. When you sometimes your parents say, do a kid and we will care. So I was also with an artist who was really also in his trajectory.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to imagine to have a kid, but at the same time I was really focused on music. So I didn't think about that. And then I changed my boyfriend. And at the age I was 36, my mother said, maybe it's time to have a kid. I said, my God, but if I have a kid now, and my boyfriend ran away, what I'm doing? I'm working every night, you know? So I said, okay, no, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And in the same way, I have good contacts with children. I love children. I say I don't want to have a kid that someone else is raising for me. You know, I have to be there at 4 o'clock after school to make to take care of it. You know, the kid. I had that kind of life when I was young. It's very important to make the lesson with the parents and not being to one person. And I didn't want that for any kid, so I said, okay, it's not for me.
Thank you. So I want to go back that you mentioned before you had to learn to put limits, and can you give us some examples of those limits? Sorry, now I'm going back a bit to your colleagues, musicians, or the audience, and that you had to learn throughout your early years to put some limits, and at the beginning you were a bit shocked. Yeah, can you go a bit more into details about these kind of limits, or what was your boundaries that were not respected?
I'm going to to tell a thing about. Sometimes you have producer or even the public, but producer fantasme.
Have fantasies? They have fantasies? The
No,
producers?
phantasm that you should look like this and have this dress and have this hair.
Yeah. They imagine
And-
you in a certain
And
way.
when you are young, you say, I don't know, I'm not really like that. Yeah, you know, we're going to put you in a pink dress with makeup. And I remember when I made a CD like this, and I was in a fashion place with a lot of people. You have to do this. I was like a doll, you know. And I went to the toilet, and there were no mirror, and I saw a little piece of mirror. Look at me, my God, who is this? And finally, as maybe everyone knows here, my first partner was Diederik, the piano teacher. It's a scoop. And, it's a scoop. Oh, you know that I was with Diederik?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, you know. And I went home with this photo, you know. And Diederik said, I'm not agree with that. And then I went to some radio interview and to Radio France. I arrived like today, you know. And the journalist, oh, it's you? Yeah, it's me. So I dress like I want. I don't want anyone to decide what I'm going to play, what I'm going to wear, what I'm going to say. So you are free to say, okay, stop now.
Would you define yourself as a feminist?
In that sense, yes, because, sorry guys, maybe not you, but a lot of person, phantasm, this person, that's why music, commercial music is working, because we make more a product about a woman, and she's going to be with that kind of hair, that kind of, well, whatever. And if it's okay with her, I'm completely okay. But if it's not okay with her, there is a problem. And sometimes I say, when you go to a concert of Keith Jarrett, do you remember what was his clothing?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's white shirt and a basket and nothing. And no one is complaining about the fact that he has this kind of, you know, and a woman, every detail counts. She's like this, oh, maybe not. Or sometimes I was once in an audience and there were a singer and she was pregnant, and I heard some comments from guys, she's too much pregnant to go on stage, or she doesn't to wear this. And it's always with women, and it can really get me a bit nervous, you know?
Just a little bit. Cool.
Or she, I don't know, she has more weight, or she's getting old, and you have
Actually,
people,
I wanted to
yeah,
mention this. Do you
Yeah.
feel, because there's a whole thing now, some studies are being made about older actresses that are, there is really little old women represented in Hollywood. And I was wondering, is it the same thing in jazz or in music scene? Definitely in pop, nobody over 35, no women over 35, that's for sure. But in jazz, I feel there's a bit more room for older generations, but I'm wondering if you have felt this
Well,
like thing with the body or the age.
I think that it's now so organizers are so much interested into the young generations, and it's like the main thing, women and young generations. And if you are out of this category, you feel very bad. Except if you are a star.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, then you can be older. But if you are not a star, if you are not a woman, musician, of course, not singer, a musician, woman. And if you are not young, life is not so easy in the jazz field right now. Yeah, unfortunately.
But the society is like this.
Yes.
If you go in the street, you will see picture of publicity. Yes, we have photo of older people because about what? About earplugs because they are deaf or whatever, or insurance for the deaf or. But most of the time, it's really photos from the young generation. So you are lucky, you are still young, but it's really going fast,
But do you feel you're playing less than you used to?
No, but I had the chance. So yes,
But
it's
she's a
certain way.
star.
No, I'm not a star because.
And she's a woman and she's a musician.
No, but I had the chance to join the Borzyk Jazz Orchestra. We play a lot with this group. But I see that it's more difficult to sell my own project. But there are other parameters because there are so much project.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much musician, so much and not too much podium.
Yeah.
And not too much money for culture. So there are a lot of parameters, So it's changing. I think the society, the culture in the society is not in a good position from my point of view. I'm sorry for that. It's not the good news.
Yeah, I agree and disagree with that. But that would take us way more time than we have. So if you have any questions in the audience, mic is open. We have 10-15 minutes, so please be free.
As a teacher, you probably did some jury situation. Do you feel sometimes women students are not judged equally than male students?
No, I never had the case. I try to think about it, but no. In the jury, I was mainly it's here in the school. Sometimes I'm invited in other schools. Interesting also to listen to what's happening in other conservatory in Europe. But I never had that kind of feeling.
And for me, as I'm most of the time a jury for singers, and most of the singers are women, of course, we don't make any difference. But the question should be, if there is a man singer, do we see them and do we confront them the same way? And the answer is yes. We do, totally, yeah. But it's an interesting question. Anyway, I don't think we make any difference between men and women when we are in a jury. No. Do you have this impression that women are categorized in another way?
I mean, maybe it's more interest to ask also women students about that. What
Mhm.
they feel about that. Especially with a male teacher who can say maybe sometimes something wrong. Or
Yeah.
just not.
In the jury or in general?
I mean, in the jury, but can be also in general, because I mean, when you are teaching, sometimes you also judge the work of a student.
Yes.
It's depending also who's in the jury. I remember, and I'm not going to say a name, but there were one teacher, he was really kind of macho. And I remember that my students going to this lesson, it was kind of difficult, but it was the personality of the guy. It was like this. So I told my...
Was he a pianist?
What?
What? Was he a pianist?
Yes.
So just to say it, being a student here, I had many, many, many problems with this guy. And
Yeah, but he was like this.
yeah, it was terrible. Because,
But let's say the name, come on. I don't know who that is, but
No. He's still alive.
yeah, but I mean, that's why we make this group and that's why we talk about these
Yeah,
things, so we can name people that are abusers and we can
Not
stop
abuser,
them.
but he was just not...
That is a certain level of violence, but I mean, I understand you don't want to say the name. I will ask you in private.
Yeah, but for me, it's a question of education. You're
Um,
well educated, you don't do things like this. Just
No, because they
respect for
grow up
others.
in healthy patriarchy, so it's not that they are well or bad educated, you know?
He was not well educated for everything, you know.
and he's not here anymore.
Yeah, but that's great news.
Yeah.
That's the news. But maybe it's not the same person. But I mean, everybody is educated in this way until a certain degree, of course, and I don't think, and then at home maybe you can compensate in the direction of being a decent person. But if I do observe things here not that much, but in CRB, I see teachers that basically they are treating students in a different way than their fellow male students. And I see, I mean, there is studies, I don't know, you are doing this kind of research that show the higher you get in the music world, the less women there are. And a lot of this kriva, living away the music scene, happens in the school because there is this power relation with teachers, and it's a very subtle. That's why it's still, even if the guy is just rude and douche, it's not actual abuse. There is a certain degree of violence that makes women discouraged to keep learning music and to go forward, because it's like, oh, what my value? I'm worth nothing, and that's why I agree. Going back to the very beginning, in which some way school can be really bad because it's full of teachers that are potentially abusers.
And it's full of young people, so they don't have the tools to react to this.
Exactly,
you know?
totally right. Yeah.
And but because that kind of situation can happen when you are, professional, and strange situation. And in the beginning, sometime you can have. I remember a story about a flute player who was a woman, and she had to play with a guy. I remember the story, and he had the gig, and after the gig, he paid the girl. And said, if you want, I give you more, but do me some favor, you know? And she said, fuck you! And she really went away, and asshole, and she went away. Look, you have to react, but you can it was just an asshole. And everyone knows that this person was an asshole. So for me, I decided at one moment, I don't want to play with asshole anymore.
Great choice.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, because life is too short, so you try to avoid not good person. I think it's also when you walk in the street, when you see someone a little bit, you change your way, you know?
No, they have to stop doing it. It's not for us to change the way. I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah, but if
for now,
if the guy is tall and I'm all alone in the night, I change my way, you know?
yeah, but we have, like, of course, self-defense, 100%.
Yeah.
But now the thing is to make that guy understand he cannot abuse. Same thing.
But you know, that kind of guy, at one moment, they have the reputation.
Yeah.
And so the people don't play with him anymore, you know?
Don't.
So it's
I'm
not
not so
like
sure.
So we had some reactions over there.
I just want maybe it's a bit apart from this, but it's
You want the mic?
I wanted to say that to me what would be very interesting in music as teachers is also to give women names, because I think in general in art and in the world, but especially in jazz, we see a lot of men musicians, and the legends that we are talking about, except for singers, it's all the time men, and we don't talk, for example, about. I remember I talked about Mary Lou Williams or Alice Coltrane, and some people were just like, I don't know them, and my teacher didn't know them, and I was like, they changed the history of music. It's really like, and I think because of the fact that we deleted the name of women in history, now there are only men, and it's so important that we have women models, because if we see, since we are little, only men on stage, of course we're never gonna be like, I can't do that, and that's why even if there is, for example, a drummer and it's a woman, I'm gonna be like, if I want to drum, I'll be like, oh, I can do this because she did it only because she's a woman, and I just wanted to know if you try or if you also, I mean, it's very important to listen to legends, but I'm a bit bored of listening only to men, so now I was like, I'm gonna listen only to women and see only movies that women did, but yeah, it's not, I don't want to be like totally like
extreme.
Extreme. I don't like this word, but like rejected men, but I'm like, I want that we see more women.
Yeah, I totally agree that we need to see some women as models. Totally. I'm not sure that doing only the opposite now, like that it would be the best idea, you know. Just try to find the names that are really in your in the direction you want to go, and try to you can always look for yourself, and also talk about it with all your friends, and try to expand those names, that those women will be present as you would love them to be, you know. It's very important to have some women as models. I totally agree. And but I'm sure that it will, if more women are on stage, they will become the models. So it's also a natural thing that is going to happen.
I wanted to ask, do you consider yourself references, models for younger generation musicians?
I don't consider myself like this, but I can observe that it has a certain impact. You know, when I was starting to play on podium, I remember my godfather, parrain. He was inspector in the schools, normal schools, and he went to schools and he said, you know, there is a little girl, 12 years old, who she had to write some dissertation on a pre-subject, and she wrote something about me, and it was Ebevent, you know, and she became a piano player, and I'm sure there are a lot of, and of course in the academy, because it's the first step to come to Conservatorium, I have a lot of women coming and studying jazz, and maybe deciding to go further with this music. So maybe it was not.
Yeah, it was not on purpose.
It was not on purpose, but it happens.
Yeah, great. I think we can call it for today. Even though I more questions. Mike?
We have some questions, but we have 5 minutes. All right.
I'm gonna address the subject of school. Apparently,
Of course.
apparently, you are the two only teachers, like women, female teachers in the jazz department. Well, I know you were in PhD, but to me, you are a teacher. I tend to notice that it had never been a problem, or never announced as a problem for any kind of male teacher here. and I think it's not the case for the students. And I never had the opportunity to work with you, Barbara, yet. But I have this opportunity with you, Nathalie, and I tend to notice that it's actually really cool to work with someone that is not your gender. And that's super cool, not because it's a different gender, but just because it never happens. And it should. So do you feel like maybe it's something worthwhile to actually wish for more non-male people to be teachers?
Yes, absolutely. Because when I'm teaching, for example, a combo in Antwerp, because here I don't have this opportunity, I feel the man from the group, the musicians, first really like staring at me and thinking, well, I that's what I feel. That's it. Okay, she's a singer, she's a woman. What can she learn to me? How can she help me? I don't think she can help me. That's the first thing. I have this first feeling, and I really have to. I think it's taking time to get the confidence, and after a while, when it's coming, I always am super happy that I succeeded and that they learned so much and that they felt comfortable enough after a while to feel free to, feel free enough to learn from me. And so I'm sure that if we would have more women teaching, it wouldn't be like this. It's just because they are not used to it. So, yes, and women and singers, because I'm really talking about the two subjects, because I'm sure that when Nathalie is coming as a combo teacher, because she's a musician, it's much easier, because she immediately received the respect from the musicians, and I feel it's a huge difference. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely like a spiral going. The more women we have, the more used we be to be taught by women. I mean, any women in figure of authority, of power, is gonna always be questioned. Hey, do you really know? So it's totally fair enough. O sea, like, it's normal. No, it's not normal, but it's gonna change. It's gonna go in that direction if we have more and more women taking space, saying what they think. Putting boundaries and being like, shut up. And I also wanted to point out musician, and then you have vocalist, instrumentalist. Let's use the words so we stop saying singer and musician, because it's the same thing. It's different instrument.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's Captain Obvious, but like in the end, language is important also to name things.
She wanted to add something.
One more.
I don't know if there's time.
I mean, we have to kind of like pack the room.
Okay,
Very
quickly,
but
very
is it
quickly.
a fast one?
and maybe not. I'm not sure.
I will cut in 4 minutes.
All right, fine. I'll go for it.
My question was about, this doesn't only apply to the music scene, but women aren't spontaneously given positions of leadership or guidance. This goes for being a teacher, but also being, leading your own group of musicians. I wanted to know how you feel about that. Like, I never feel like when a group of musicians come together, the first it's not the first thing you think about is to give leadership or the biggest voice to the woman in the room. It's more likely going to be a man. What's your relationship with leadership in the music world? That's my question.
3 minutes.
Okay, 5.
If I have to lead a band with my project, so I choose also the musician for the qualities, and of course I let them space. So I'm not too much leading, except if they don't play completely the tune I wrote, but bring your own stuff, you know, otherwise what's the purpose to make that kind of music, you know, because it's not completely written music. If I write an arrangement, then maybe I will say, okay, there, you have to play legato, but I don't like too much to lead, but it's not to the fact that I'm a woman, it's because when I was young I was quite shy, and I'm not a dominant person, and I hate dominant person, it could be male or female. You know, you have women who are incredibly dominant, it's not, they take the power on you, and I think I don't like that relationship in music. And I try to avoid also, sometimes it happens that you are confronted with kind of personality, and you have to protect yourself, because they feel when people are not dominant because they want to fight, it's like the wolves, you know. We're still animals. And then you have to deal with this, and it's happening in music, and it's happening in banks, whatever.
But do you feel...
the thing is that, sorry, in music, as leader, we can choose with whom we want to play, and that's a wonderful thing. So just go. I mean, like Nathalie was saying earlier, that you can go and choose for people respectful and who are going to be fair and nice, and you know, to. If it's your band, it's your band. You have to lead it in a way. But it can be full of respect, and if it's not, then maybe you are not with the good musicians.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, but if you don't know yet, that phase of figuring out who to play with might be the most complicated one, and of most exposure to, like, what is this? How do I do that? But I guess it's a trying and
Yes.
And it's a never-ending story. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I have one super quick question. It's just a yes or no answer. But would you call yourself a feminist or not?
you said yes.
Certainly, yeah. I asked my friend, my boyfriend.
What does he have to do with this?
Because sometimes at home I say, I'm starting to be, you know, quite nervous with some society problems.
Are not other people.
But not only feminist problems, but also other problems. You know, I have to calm down.
I don't think so.
I don't know. It's not good for the health.
That's for sure. And we don't want to be stressed. But I don't think feminists are angry people, and that's the image we should. Because
I'm a feminist, but I don't like feminists who want to do like men. So being a feminist is recognizing the quality of the woman and do what you are, and not take it like a man, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of feminist I don't like. You know, you see that like a director of big company, and they act like they were men. No, stay who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But
I totally agree with this point of view. Totally. I would say
For me, I
exactly
think
the
that
same
is a
thing.
more a capitalistic kind of thing, like being a shark and wanting power and these kind of things. Yeah, it's true, because in the end, I fully support if a woman wants to be a shark and be super powerful and rich and have 400 like gigolos. I don't care. Like, but the problem here is more like.
The thing is that we need more men being feminist.
For sure. I mean, we need a more horizontal way of existing.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, if we are within capitalism, I don't mind if a woman is like a man. It's just the problem is beyond that. But that's my opinion. Anyway, thank you so much for staying until the last minute and listening.